Hello there! Today, I'm going to rank the Arcane Casters in Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. Now, as I've mentioned, these rankings are just based on my own opinion. As I've mentioned in other ranking videos, there are three general tiers I put these classes into. The first, or the highest level of class, is the Awesome tier, which is basically the most powerful, which are basically consistent of the most powerful classes in the game. The second are the You're Gonna Have Fun tier. These are the classes that, generally speaking, you're going to have fun. You're going to have a good time when you play these classes, and you're not going to be overpowered, but you're also going to be able to explore aspects of the particular classes or kits. The last and lowest are the challenging ranking tier. These are classes where, as it says in the name, these are going to be challenging. You're going to have a tough time playing the game with these. They're not all terrible, but they are going to be a challenge, especially for newer players. With that said, let's go into these Arcane Casters. The first one, and the lowest ranking Arcane Caster, is the Abjurer, which is a Specialist Mage. Now, Specialist Mages get a couple of bonuses. First off, all Specialist Mages get a bonus spell per level. Second is that they get a bonus to learning new spells within their particular school. And third, they get bonuses to saving against spells cast against them from their particular school, and they get a bonus when casting against creatures when casting their own spells. Creatures that are the targets of those spells get a penalty to their saving throws. Now, the bad news for Abjurers is that the last and most advantageous benefit, which is the saving throw changes, doesn't go into effect at all. There are no offensive abjuration spells. Not only that, but when you look at the penalties, Abjurers lose Transmutation. That is their opposition school, which means they can't cast spells within the Transmutation school, which means they lose Stone Skin, they lose Haste, they lose Slow. These are rather devastating and really can make a big impact on the survivability of your Abjurer. Yes, your Abjurer can cast defensive spells, but they're also going to be severely limited in what they can actually do throughout the game, which is why Abjurers are the worst class of Arcane Caster. And I really do think that they are not a very good class at all. I think that they make the game very, very challenging to play, and I don't think you're going to have a good time if you try playing as an Abjurer. Now, the second kit of Mage, that's the second worst, is the Diviner. Now, if you were playing a tabletop RPG with a human GM and some other players around the table, and let's say you were going into a dark dungeon or you were running an investigation campaign, sign me up for being a Diviner. Like, that's a cool idea. The idea that you can uncover things with magic and use utility spells to try to decipher mysteries, that's really kind of cool. Unfortunately, it just doesn't lend itself very well to Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. The issue also is that Diviners miss out on Conjuration spells, and Conjuration spells have a lot of good functions when they play Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, and losing out on that particular school is just not very good. The save bonuses don't really apply much to combat, and I think that Diviners just aren't really fit for Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. Again, great role-playing class, I love the idea of it, but unfortunately it just doesn't quite work for Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. The next Specialist Mage that we're going to look at is the Transmuter. Now, the Transmuter has powerful spells behind it, such as Stone Skin and Haste and Slow. It also has some deceptively useless spells. Flesh to Stone and Disintegrate are two options where basically it will destroy all the equipment that a character or your enemy will have, which is not good at all. Not only that, but what makes the Abjurer Mage unique is their defensive spells, right? Protection from magical energy, protection from magical weapons. the Transmuter loses those things. So while, yeah, they're defended against physical attacks with Stone Skin, and while they get to buff their party, they do lose out on significant magical protections that make them quite weak. So it's these three classes that I consider to be really, really difficult to play. I don't actually think they would be bad in the tabletop role-playing game, but in Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, they just aren't very good, and they have a lot of limitations to them. So they are considered to be the challenging tier. The next class I would say that goes in the Arcane class ranking is the Bard. And you're going to have a good time if you play as a Bard, right? I have it low on this list, but it is a really good kit to play. It's a really good class to play, no matter what kit you're using. The cool thing about Bards is the fact that, first off, they get the advantage to using any weapon at all in the game. So you can go in with a halberd or a heavy crossbow or a composite longbow if you have the strength. Just a fantastic range of weapons. Plus, they get levels much faster than other mages do. So that means more stone skins, more images from mirror image, and they get a bunch of spells that scale their scalable spells go very well. They do have the delay in spellcasting. They can't cast spells right away at level 1, but you don't need to really worry about that because it is a class that does build. They make a fantastic mage tank, and I definitely encourage you to give them a try if you ever get the chance. The next ranked spellcaster, the next ranked specialist mage, is going to be the Necromancer. Necromancers have a lot of very powerful abilities, not to mention the obvious one of Animate Dead. They also have a lot of very powerful spells that disable enemies or control the battlefield. They have very high damage spells that rival Invokers, and they get access to all sorts of nice buffs such as ghost armor, such as vampiric touch, which acts also as a close range damage that does a nice amount of damage. And I'm very, very impressed with Necromancers. The big downside is they lose those defensive illusionist spells, and that makes them not the best specialist mage. Now, again, they're not bad. You're gonna have a fun time if you play as them. And, I mean, it's kind of cool fluff, right? Being to raise the dead or use necromantic abilities to cause a massive amount of damage. It's a lot of fun, and I definitely think you're gonna have a good time doing it. Even with that said, I do think that there are more powerful specialist mages and arcane casters out there. But, I mean, who wouldn't want to have undead power at your fingertips? Really, I think that's pretty cool. One other side note too, and this is a complete side note, but I think it's kind of interesting how necromantic spells also include healing, right? It's the magic of life and death. So all of those healing spells, guess what? They're also a form of necromancy. I always thought that was kind of an interesting touch. It's kind of here's necromancy, here's the good side of it, and here's the evil side of it. I really appreciate that, and I think necromancers, I kind of wish they would have maybe 1 or 2 healing spells, but that's really more of a cleric's duty anyway. Regardless, I think you're going to have fun doing it. I don't think they're the best specialist mages, but they're certainly not bad, and you can do a lot of good things and a lot of damage with necromancers. The next of the specialist mages is the Illusionist. Illusionists do lose out on necromancy, that's true, and they miss out on the really nice big damage spells that necromancers have. However, they get some really nice buff spells, they get some good protection spells or defensive spells, and they can pretty much control the battlefield very effectively. I like the idea of Illusionists. I think that they kind of play as the role of the trickster. I think the thing that puts Illusionists a little bit higher than necromancers is the connected ability score. The connected ability score is basically that minimum ability score that each specialist mage has to have. For necromancers, it's wisdom, and that's okay, I guess, especially if you're going to be casting Wish, but that's only for one spell. Maybe if you want to dual class into being a cleric, which, I mean, you could do, and there's no harm in it, but I don't think that that's the best combination. Illusionists combine with dexterity, and everybody needs dexterity. Everybody needs to have a high AC and high dexterity in order to survive. So I really think that that combination is actually much better for any spellcaster and much better for any specialist mage. So for that small reason, I do give the edge to Illusionists, but I don't think that I don't think that they're the creme de la creme of specialist mages, just because they miss out on the really high damage spells of Necromancers. The next spellcaster on the list are Enchanters. First and foremost, I want to talk about their weakness in the fact that there are no enchantment spells past level 5. The most powerful enchantment spells are things like Feeble Mind and Chaos, and Domination, which are powerful. They're very powerful, and they can have an effect very late into the game. However, they don't get anything past level 5. So once they hit that level 6 spell tier, that's pretty much it for Enchanters. But the big advantage that they get is they synergize very well with the saves that they have, particularly with the kind of damage to enemy saves and saving throws that they get, saving throw bonuses that they get to resist enchantment spells. Enchantment spells can be devastating, especially in the early game, and I mean even into Baldur's Gate Shadows of Amn, even probably a little bit into Throne of Baal. You're gonna be running into enemies that cast Confusion or Mental Domination, and what better mage is there to try to resist that than an Enchanter? Also, you do miss out on evocation spells, which means that you're not going to get the same level of damage done, but you can also still use necromantic spells, and you can use conjuration spells to back up any damage that needs to be done. So really, enchanters can still do the same thing that invokers can do, but they can also have that control element. And I mean, who doesn't want to have Charm Person actually cast at closer to level at level 1, 2, or 3. It's actually a great class. The next is the Generalist Mage. Now, as a big note, if this is your first time playing Baldur's Gate and you want to be an Arcane Caster, be a Mage. Be a Generalist Mage. Don't jump right in to being a Specialist Mage or a Wild Mage or a Sorcerer, or even, a Bard. Yeah, I think you could do a Bard pretty decently. But seriously, if you want to learn how to use magic in Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, be a Generalist Mage. You will basically get what you need out of them. They don't get as many spells per day as the Specialist Mages. That's true, but you can learn every spell in the game, and you'll have a good time playing the game. In fact, dual classing into a mage makes the character insanely powerful. It gives them tons of protections, it gives them tons of capability to do offensive damage, it lets them do whatever they want with the magic. So, Generalist Mages are amazing. You should definitely give it a try if you are new to playing Baldur's Gate, even if there are better mages up on this list. If this is your first time playing Baldur's Gate and you want to try being an Arcane Caster, be a Generalist Mage. You won't regret it. The next of the Specialist Mages is the Conjurer. So the Conjurers have basically all the bases covered as far as Specialist Mages go. They can summon creatures, which is kind of obvious. That kind of goes into what a Conjurer basically is. But they also have a lot of damage spells, such as Melf's Acid Arrow, Flame Arrow, and several other kind of conjuration spells that do just direct damage. They also have certain spells that are kind of control spells, and I really do think that Conjurers, since they also have a lot of spells that have particular saves, so I think you just get a lot of benefit out of it. Plus, you don't actually lose that much. You do lose the utility of divination spells, I'll give you that. So you're not going to be identifying, you're not going to be detecting invisibility, things like that. But Conjurers do get the advantage of having a lot of other spells available to them that let them do everything else that they need to do. So I think that Conjurers are a fantastic mage. One of the best mages in the game is Edwin, and Edwin is a Conjurer. Now, he's not one of the best mages in the game because he's a Conjurer. It's because he has a bunch of additional little bonuses, but it doesn't hurt that he is a Conjurer, and it doesn't hurt that he has the availability and the additional spells to cast nice control spells that can protect and can defend the party while they send either the other goons to go in to do the heavy work, or he just summons acid arrows and flame arrows to do the damage necessary. So quite frankly, I think Conjurers are the second best specialist mage. You're going to have a good time if you play as a Conjurer. And my top choice of specialist mages is the Invoker. So the Invoker, they're pretty much known as being the big damage dealer, right? This is the spellcaster that's going to cast, Fireball. They're going to cast Lightning Bolt. They're going to cast other, extremely high level evocation spells that involve direct magical energy or direct damage. But they also have those control abilities. One of the best spells that Invokers get is actually Web. Web is a fantastic spell that they get, and that is an evocation spell, and it's a truly great spell to cast early on in the game. In fact, it's a great spell that you can link up with the various spell sequencer spells that allow them to just double them up and have an entire area locked down to anyone who doesn't have free action. So Invokers, they get a huge amount of damage, they get a huge amount of control. No, they don't get enchantment spells. That's true. But the bonuses they get towards the saves to avoid damage from enemy evocation spells is also really huge. Plus, both them and Conjurers get the advantage of having higher constitution, which means they're going to have higher hit points. So, quite frankly, I think of the specialist mages, if you want to go with the specialist mage, Evokers are not a bad choice. And of course, no arcane spellcaster list is going to be complete without the Wild Mage. Wild Mages, it's going to be interchangeable based on your play style of the game. If you're going to try playing the game hardcore on insanity difficulty, I would recommend not being a Wild Mage, because your character could, as poor Claudius can attest, turn themselves to stone just by casting an armor spell. It happens, and that was a relatively mild fate for a Wild Mage. That being said, if you're playing and you're willing to save scum a little bit or play on an easier difficulty, Wild Mages are really powerful. They get the Reckless Deumer, which lets them cast any spell or attempt to cast any spell in their spellbook. That is absolutely fantastic. That combined with the fact that they get the advantage of having an additional spell every day is just great. So, and they have no limits on what spells they can actually cast. In fact, they get a few additional spells, right? They get Chaos Shield. That makes the Reckless Deumer just a little safer to cast. At high levels, Wild Mages are fantastic. In fact, I have this kind of dream, if I were to ever power game, of just creating a level like 20 Wild Mage, stuff his level 1 spell slots with Reckless Deumer, get a ton of really powerful spells as well as Chaos Shield, and just have at it. Don't worry about casting level 1 spells except for that. But Wild Mages are chaotic, but can be a lot of fun. And that leads us to the last two, and at the second place is going to be Sorcerers. I love the fluff of Sorcerers. I think Sorcerers are just so damn cool. Think of the Wizard as being someone like Tony Stark. They build themselves, they study, they learn all the spells and technology that they need in order to be successful. That's great. That's awesome. The Sorcerer and their kit, the Dragon Disciple, they're like the X-Men. They have natural powers. They may be ostracized, which, by the way, leads to a great storytelling element to them if you want to kind of envision them that way. But Sorcerers just have this natural ability, and they have just more focus on what they are aiming to do. You get additional spells each level. Not only that, but you can also cast spells from scrolls. It's not optimal. There are penalties to doing so, but you're not going to be in a bad spot if you need to do that, and you have the accessibility of doing such a thing. Sorcerers also, the cool thing about them is they don't rely on any particular ability score in order to cast their spells. Unlike 5th edition D&D, you can have a Charisma 3 Sorcerer and go through your playthrough just fine in Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. Sorcerers have a lot of flexibility to do other things, and when they get their basically their powers, what I'd like to think of their superpowers, they get those and they can use them as many times a day as they, well, not as many times a day as they want, but they can use them a huge number of times every day. The weakness is, of course, you can't shift around spells. So if you are being a brand new player to Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition, I would maybe hold off on being a sorcerer, but just recognize that them and the number 1 class, Dragon Disciples, are very, very, very powerful. So Dragon Disciples, they are, in my opinion, the best Arcane Caster. Beamdog knocked it out of the park when they brought in the Dragon Disciple. You're talking about a character class that covers up the one kind of weakness of mages, which is the fact that they don't have the survivability that other classes do. Dragon Disciples get additional bonuses to AC and to Constitution, and they get fire resistance. That is huge. The Dragon Breath, it's pretty nice. I like it. I use it every now and then. It's a once per day little ability, and it's nice to have. But the spells that they get, the availability of their spells, even though it's a little less than sorcerers, it's a nice combination with the kind of sorcerer's way of spell casting, right? Plus, I mean, who doesn't want to have some sort of connection to a dragon? I mean, that's just so damn cool. So I would say, if you're interested in trying being a sorcerer or Dragon Disciple, first and foremost, one thing I would recommend is look up builds. Look up builds and make sure you know your spell book, right? Make sure you know what arcane spells do. You do not want to set yourself picking up Grease at level 1 and then never being able to use it later on. Just make sure you're conscious of what you are picking for your spells. Dragon Disciples and Sorcerers are just absolutely fantastic and well worth giving a try. Well, I want to thank you for watching. Give the video a like and comment about how absolutely brilliant I am, how there is no other alternate opinion, or how much of an idiot I am. I really think that I value all of your precious little opinions. Actually, your opinions are pretty amazing. They're the reason why I keep going every day. So thank you so much for watching. For now, take care and good luck. We're all counting on you.